The council chamber was huge. 47 different species sat in their designated seats, arranged in a perfect circle around the central platform. Some had scales, others had fur or shells, a few glowed softly with their own light. The chamber hummed with the sound of translation devices converting thousands of words into languages that could be understood by everyone present. Ambassador Ji-hoon Park stood quietly in the human section. He wore a simple dark suit, nothing fancy. Next to him sat Narration, who was reviewing data on her tablet. They had been coming to these meetings for years. Ji-hoon had been the human ambassador for 12 years now. He knew every corner of this chamber, every face in this room. Today felt different, though. The air was thick with tension. Chancellor Thulkan called the session to order. The massive reptilian being had ruled the council for 3 centuries. His scales were deep purple, and his eyes were cold and calculating. When he spoke, everyone listened. "We have an important vote today," Thulkan announced. "The matter of human expansion limits." Ji-hoon felt Nari shift beside him. They had known this was coming. For months, the other species had been complaining. Humans were expanding too fast, they said. Humans were taking too many resources. Humans were too aggressive in claiming new worlds. None of it was true. Humanity had followed every rule. They had stayed within their assigned sectors. They had shared their discoveries. But facts did not seem to matter anymore. Councillor Vextar stood up. The insectoid being chittered excitedly, his translator converting it to words. "Humans have been members for 87 years. In that time, they have claimed 42 new worlds. This is unacceptable. They are young. They are reckless. We must limit them to their current territory for the next century." Murmurs of agreement echoed through the chamber. Ji-hoon watched as species after species nodded their approval. Some of these beings had known humans for decades. They had worked together on projects. They had shared meals and conversations. But now they agreed that humans needed to be controlled. Councillor Oranim floated forward, the crystalline being pulsed with blue light. "I second this motion. Furthermore, humans should be restricted from the primary trade routes. They can use the secondary lanes. That will be sufficient for their needs." The primary trade routes. Humans had helped map half of those routes. Human ships had cleared debris fields. Human engineers had built 3 of the major waystation hubs, and now they were being told those routes were off limits. Nari whispered to Ji-hoon, "They're really doing this." Ji-hoon nodded. He had hoped it would not come to this. He had sent messages. He had tried to negotiate. But the council had made up its mind weeks ago. This vote was just a formality. "All in favor," Thulkan called out. 46 hands, claws, tentacles, and appendages rose into the air. Only the humans abstained. "The motion passes," Thulkan declared. "Humanity is restricted to current territorial holdings for 100 standard years. Access to primary trade routes is revoked immediately." The chamber erupted in satisfied chatter. Several councillors congratulated each other. Vextar clicked his mandibles in what passed for a smile among his kind. Ji-hoon stood up slowly. The movement was quiet, but somehow it drew attention. The chatter died down. All eyes turned to the human ambassador. "Chancellor Thulkan," Ji-hoon said calmly. "I would like to address the council." "Chancellor Thulkan." Thulkan waved a clawed hand. "You may speak, Ambassador Park." "Though the vote is final." "I understand," Ji-hoon replied. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of beings he had worked with for years. "I will be brief. Humanity came to this council 87 years ago with hope. We wanted to learn from older civilizations. We wanted to contribute to something greater than ourselves. We believed in the ideals this council claimed to represent." He paused. The chamber was completely silent now. "For 87 years, we have served faithfully. We have followed every rule. We have helped with every crisis. When the Vextar colony needed emergency medical supplies, it was human ships that delivered them. When the trade networks needed updating, it was human programmers who did the work. When stations needed maintenance, it was human engineers who kept them running. Vextar shifted uncomfortably in his seat. We asked for nothing in return except to be treated as equal partners, Ji-hoon continued. But today, this council has made it clear that we are not equals. We are subordinates to be controlled and limited. Our contributions are forgotten. Our loyalty means nothing. Nari stood up beside him. She gathered her data pads and placed them in her case. Therefore, Ji-hoon said, effective immediately, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council. We resign our membership. We will remove our personnel from all council facilities within the week. We will honor all existing humanitarian commitments, but we will no longer participate in council affairs. For a moment, there was stunned silence. Then Thulkan began to laugh. It was a deep, rumbling sound that shook the chamber. You cannot be serious, the Chancellor said. Where will you go? What will you do? You need the Council. Ambassador. You need our trade. You need our protection. You need our technology. Ji-hoon picked up his own briefcase. We thank the Council for 87 years of association. We bear you no ill will. We simply choose to part ways. Our ship leaves in 1 hour. All human personnel will be departing with us. You will be back, Vextar called out. Within months, you will come begging to be readmitted. You cannot survive without us. Ji-hoon turned to look at the insectoid counselor. There was no anger in his eyes, no hatred, just a quiet sadness. Perhaps, he said. Or perhaps you will discover what it was we actually did here. He walked toward the exit. Nari followed. Their footsteps echoed in the silent chamber. No one tried to stop them. No one called them back. As they reached the door, Oranim spoke up. This is foolishness. The Council has been generous to your kind. You are young and impulsive. You will regret this decision. Ji-hoon paused at the doorway. He did not turn around. The Council has spoken, he said quietly. And so have we. Goodbye. The door slid shut behind them. Inside the chamber, the councillors looked at each other. After a few moments, Thulkan cleared his throat. Well then, he said. Moving on to the next matter of business. The trade dispute between the Felnar and the Quintar. Within minutes, the council had forgotten about the humans. They were just workers, after all. Useful laborers at best. The galaxy would continue just fine without them. The massive council station continued its slow orbit around the neutral world below. Ships came and went. Business continued as usual. No one noticed when the human transport vessel quietly detached from the docking ring and accelerated toward the outer system. No one paid attention to the 36 smaller human ships that left with it. They were gone. And the council had already moved on. It would be 3 days before anyone realized what had just happened. Director Hyunwoo Choi sat in his office on Station Olympus 7, packing the last of his belongings. He had worked here for 16 years, managing the logistics network that kept supplies flowing across council space. The walls were bare now. All his certificates and awards had been taken down. The family photos were already packed away. His communicator beeped. It was the third message from his replacement. A Quintar named Velosh. Director Choi, I still do not understand the routing protocols. The manual you left is incomplete. Please respond. Hyunwoo sighed. The manual was not incomplete. It was over 3,000 pages long. But understanding the manual required actually reading it. And more importantly, understanding why each protocol existed. He had tried to explain this during the handover yesterday. Velosh had seemed confident that he could figure it out. Hyunwoo sent a polite response. All information has been provided as requested. The protocols are documented in sections 12 through 47. Good luck. He picked up his last box and walked out. He did not look back. Across the station, similar scenes were playing out. Human engineers finished their shifts and left. Human technicians handed over their tools. Human medical staff transferred their patient files. There was no sabotage, no angry words. They simply completed their work and departed. Most of the other species barely noticed. Humans had always been the quiet ones. working in the background. There were other workers to replace them. The station would be fine. On the second day, the first problem appeared. A mining colony in Vextar space sent an emergency signal. Their atmospheric processors were failing. Toxic gases were building up in the underground tunnels where 10,000 Vextar workers lived. They needed help immediately. The Council's Emergency Response Center received the call. The operator on duty tried to dispatch a repair team. That was when they discovered that the emergency response roster was mostly empty. 200 names had been removed from the system. All of them were human. The operator scrambled to find alternatives. They contacted the Vextar Engineering Corps. The Vextar engineers arrived at the colony 6 hours later. By then, 3,000 workers had been evacuated to the surface. The engineers examined the processors and realized they had no idea how to fix them. The systems were not Vextar design. They were human-made units that had been installed 40 years ago. The Vextar engineers had never learned how they worked. Why would they? The humans had always been there to fix them. Captain Yuna Kim received the distress call while her ship was passing through the outer system. She was 3 days into her journey back to human space. Her crew had always responded to emergencies in this sector. It was what they did. Her communications officer looked at her questioningly. "Captain, should we respond?" Yuna thought about it. She thought about the 10,000 Vextar workers who were in danger. Then she thought about Councillor Vextar's words in the council chamber. "You will come begging to be readmitted." "No," she said quietly. "We are no longer members of the council. This is not our responsibility anymore. Log the signal and continue on our course." The communications officer hesitated, then nodded. The ship continued on its way. By the 4th day, the problems were spreading. Medical supplies were piling up at Distribution Hub 7. The automated sorting system had stopped working. The hub director, a Felnar named Keshra, stared at the thousands of containers in confusion. The system had always worked perfectly. Now, it was just frozen. She called the technical support line. The automated response informed her that the support staff had been reduced. Wait times were currently 18 hours. 18 hours for a system that distributed life-saving medicine to 40 colonies. Keshra pulled up the maintenance logs. The last entry was from 5 days ago. It was signed by someone named Minho Bay. The entry simply said, "Final inspection complete. System operating normally. End of contract." She tried to contact Minho. The message bounced back. Address not found. On the 5th day, the trade routes began to fail. Not fail exactly. Ships were still moving. Cargo was still being transported, but everything was slower, much slower. Ships were arriving at waypoints and finding no guidance. Docking schedules were confused. Cargo manifests did not match what was actually in the holds. The Council's Trade Commission held an emergency meeting. They pulled up the operational data and started digging into the systems. What they found made them sick. 73% of all logistics coordination had been done by humans. Not the big decisions. Not the policy. The actual work of making sure things went to the right places at the right times. Humans had created optimization algorithms that ran in the background. Humans had monitored the systems and fixed small problems before they became big ones. The algorithms were still there. The interfaces still worked. But the humans who understood how they actually functioned were gone. Director Hyunwoo and his team of 200 logistics specialists had made the whole thing work. Without them, the council was discovering that they knew how to use the tools, but not how to fix them when something went wrong. By the 7th day, panic was setting in. Councillor Oranim called an emergency session. Only 15 of the 46 councillors showed up. The others were dealing with crises in their own territories. "This is unacceptable," Oranim declared. "We must contact the humans. They must return to their posts." One of the junior councillors, a young Quintar, raised a tentacle. "We have tried contacting them. All human colonies are responding with automated messages. They say they are no longer members and cannot assist with council matters." "Cannot or will not?" Oranim demanded. "The messages do not specify. They are very polite. but they are firm. Thulkan, who had been silent until now, spoke up. What is the current status of critical systems? An aide stepped forward with a datapad. His hands were shaking. Chancellor, we have compiled a preliminary report. It is not good. Explain. We are discovering that humans were involved in far more operations than we realized. They were not in leadership positions, so they were not counted in the official records, but they were essential to actual operations. The aide brought up a display. It showed a web of interconnected systems. Red marks indicated failures or problems. There were hundreds of red marks. Atmospheric processing systems on 14 colonies are experiencing difficulties. Medical supply chains are backing up. Trade route efficiency is down 40%. Station maintenance is falling behind schedule. Emergency response times have tripled. Thulkan stared at the display. How did we not know about this? The humans never complained, Chancellor. They simply did their jobs. We thought they were just workers. We did not realize they were holding everything together. Counselor Vextar stood up. His mandibles clicked nervously. My people are suffering. 3 of our colonies have declared states of emergency. We need those human technicians back. We need them now. Then contact them, Oranim said. Offer them incentives. Pay them more. Give them better positions. The aide shook his head. We have tried. They are not responding to offers. The automated messages say they are not available for contract work with council entities at this time. At this time? Vextar seized on the words. That means they might reconsider later. Perhaps, the aide said. But for now, they have made it clear. They are not coming back. The chamber fell silent. For the first time, the counselors were beginning to understand what they had done. They had not just lost workers. They had lost the people who made their civilization actually function. The humans had not been glamorous. They had not been in charge. But they had been everywhere, doing the jobs that no one else wanted to do, and now they were gone. Thulkan looked at the display again. The red marks seemed to multiply as he watched. How long until we can train replacements? The aide consulted his datapad. For full replacement of human technical capabilities, estimated time is 3 to 5 years. Assuming we can find qualified candidates, which we are currently struggling to do. 3 to 5 years, Thulkan repeated. And in the meantime? In the meantime, Chancellor, we manage as best we can, and we hope nothing else breaks. But things were breaking. Every day, more systems failed. Every day, more emergencies arose. And every day, the humans remained silent and distant. They had left quietly. No threats, no anger. They had simply walked away, and the council was finally realizing what a terrible mistake they had made. 3 weeks after the humans left, Station Olympus 7 began to die. It started with a small thing. The temperature in Sector 12 dropped by 2 degrees. The environmental controls compensated automatically. No one noticed. But the next day, Sector 12 dropped another 3 degrees. Then Sector 15 started getting too warm. The air recyclers in Sector 20 began making a strange humming noise. The station's chief engineer, a Felnar named Torval, called in his maintenance teams. They ran diagnostics. Everything showed green. The systems reported that they were functioning normally, but they were not. Torval pulled up the maintenance logs from the past 5 years. He saw the same name appearing over and over again. Taeyang Han. The human had logged thousands of entries. Most of them were marked as minor adjustments or routine optimization. Torval had never paid attention to those entries. Routine maintenance was beneath his notice. He focused on the big projects, the important work. He had assumed the minor stuff took care of itself. Now he understood. It had not taken care of itself. Taeyang had taken care of it. For years, the human engineer had been fixing small problems before they became big ones. He had been compensating for design flaws. He had been making adjustments that kept ancient systems running smoothly. And now Taeyang was gone. Torval tried to recreate what the human had done. He looked at the adjustment logs. They made no sense. The changes seemed random. Why would you reduce power to environmental controls in one sector while increasing it in another? Why would you reroute data feeds through secondary processors? He did not understand that these were not random changes. They were careful compensations for flaws in the original station design, flaws that Taeyang had discovered and worked around over years of experience. By the fourth week, 3 stations had to be partially evacuated. 7 more were running on emergency protocols. The council was hemorrhaging resources trying to fix problems that should not have existed. Then the plague hit. It started on a Quintar colony world. 1 person got sick, then 10, then 100. Within days, thousands were infected. The disease spread to 3 more worlds before the council even identified what it was. Dr. Suman Lee sat in her new office on the human colony world of New Seoul. She read the emergency bulletin from council space with a heavy heart. She knew this disease. She had dealt with it before. Twice, actually. Once 15 years ago, and once 30 years ago. The cure was complex but not difficult if you knew what you were doing. You needed to synthesize a specific compound from 3 different biological sources. Then you needed to combine them in the right proportions. Then you needed to deliver them within a specific time window. Suman had done it before. She had written detailed protocols. She had trained medical teams, but she had always been there to coordinate the actual response. She knew how to get the different teams working together. She knew how to handle the inevitable complications. Her communicator buzzed. It was a message from the Council Medical Authority. They were begging for her help. They offered to pay her anything she wanted. They promised her any position she desired. Suman closed the message without responding. She had spent 40 years serving the Council. She had worked endless hours. She had saved millions of lives, and when the vote came to restrict humanity, the medical authority had supported it without hesitation. She was done. On the colony worlds, the death toll began to climb. The council medical teams tried to follow the protocols Suman had written, but the protocols assumed a level of coordination that they could not achieve. Different teams interpreted the instructions differently. Resources arrived at the wrong times. The compounds degraded before they could be administered. By week 6, tens of thousands were dead. The economic collapse came next. Jiwon Kwan had been a clerk in the council's financial services division. She had worked in a small office in the basement of the administrative building. No one important ever visited her. Her supervisor had barely known her name. What they had not known was that Jiwon was the person who made interstellar banking actually work. The 47 member species all had different financial systems, different currencies, different accounting methods, different regulations. In theory, the Council's unified banking system allowed them all to work together. In practice, the systems were constantly generating errors. Jiwon had spent 12 years writing algorithms to reconcile the differences. She had created automated processes that caught and corrected thousands of small discrepancies every day. She had built a system of checks and balances that kept everything flowing smoothly. She had documented her work. The documentation was sitting on a server somewhere in council space. But documentation only helps if people read it. And understanding the documentation required understanding 47 different financial systems and how they interacted. No one had that knowledge except Jiwon. And she was gone. The first bank freeze happened on day 30. A routine transaction between a Vextar merchant and a Felnar supplier simply stopped. The funds left one account, but never arrived at the other. They were lost. Somewhere in the system, the banks launched an investigation. They found the funds in a reconciliation buffer, but they could not figure out how to release them. Every time they tried, the system flagged errors and blocked the transaction. Within a week, thousands of transactions were frozen. Billions in currency was trapped in digital limbo. Trade slowed, then stopped. Merchants refused to ship goods because they could not guarantee payment. Colonies ran short on supplies. The council's financial experts worked around the clock. They pulled in specialists from every member species. Nothing worked. The system that Jiwon had maintained so effortlessly was now a maze of errors and contradictions. High Chancellor Thulkan called an emergency session. This time, All 46 counselors attended. They had to. Their civilizations were falling apart. "We must get the humans back," Vextar said. There was no pride left in his voice. "My people are dying. My economy is collapsing. I will agree to anything. Just bring them back." Counselor Oranim pulsed dimly. The crystalline being had lost its usual bright glow. "I have reviewed our records. We have identified over 10,000 critical positions that were held by humans. We did not realize it because they were classified as support staff. But they were not support. They were the foundation." Thulkan looked older than his 300 years. "I have sent messages to the human government. I have offered concessions. I have apologized. They respond with polite acknowledgments, and nothing more." "What do they want?" a junior counselor asked. "Money? Territory? Power? They want nothing from us," Thulkan said heavily. "That is the problem. We have nothing they need. We thought they needed us. We were wrong." The chamber fell silent. The truth was settling over them like a heavy blanket. They had not just lost workers. They had lost partners. They had lost the people who had believed in the council's ideals and worked to make them real. And they had thrown it all away because of arrogance. "We need a plan," Oranim said. "We cannot simply collapse. There must be something we can do." Thulkan nodded slowly. "I will lead a delegation to human space. We will go in person. We will offer whatever they ask. We will beg, if we must." "Will they even see us?" Vextar asked. "I do not know," Thulkan admitted. "But we have to try. The alternative is watching our civilization crumble." Crow. The vote was unanimous. Thulkan would lead a delegation of the senior counselors. They would travel to human space and attempt to negotiate humanity's return. It was the first time in the Council's 1,000-year history that they had ever sent such a delegation to a former member species. Usually, it was the other way around. Former members came begging to be readmitted, but nothing about this situation was usual. As the counselors filed out, they passed by the empty human section. The seats sat vacant. Dust was already beginning to gather on them. Looking at those empty seats, each counselor felt a deep sense of loss. They had not just lost humans. They had lost something essential about themselves. They had lost the idea that the council was truly about cooperation and mutual benefit. They had proven that it was really about power and control. And now they were paying the price. The council delegation's ship emerged from hyperspace near the human capital world of Terra Nova. High Chancellor Thulkan stood on the bridge, looking at the planet below. He had expected to see a struggling civilization, perhaps desperate and chaotic. What he saw instead made his heart sink. 3 massive orbital stations ringed the planet. Each one gleamed with perfect maintenance. Ships moved in orderly patterns between them. The traffic control system was so efficient that hundreds of vessels navigated the space without a single collision or delay. "They are doing fine," Counselor Vextar said quietly. "Better than fine." "Request docking permission," Thulkan ordered. The communications officer sent the request. The response came back immediately. "Delegation from the Galactic Council. You are cleared for docking at Station Harmony. Port 7. Welcome to human space." The message was polite, professional, but there was no warmth in it. Just standard procedure. They docked and were met by a human protocol officer. She was young, probably in her 30s. She smiled and bowed slightly. "Chancellor Thulkan. Counselors. Welcome. President Daehyun Im is ready to receive you. Please follow me." The walk through the station was eye-opening. Everything worked perfectly. The corridors were clean and well lit. The environmental systems hummed quietly and efficiently. Workers moved with purpose and confidence. There was no chaos, no crisis, no sign of struggle. They passed a window overlooking a construction bay. A new ship was being built, its frame already taking shape. Human engineers worked alongside robotic assistants, their movements coordinated and precise. "You have been busy," Oranim observed. The protocol officer smiled. "We always are. Building is what we do." They were led to a conference room. It was simple but elegant. No ostentatious displays of wealth or power. Just a good table, comfortable chairs, and a nice view of the planet below. President Dae-hyun Im was already there. He stood to greet them. He was a man in his 60s, with gray hair and calm eyes. Next to him stood Ambassador Ji-hoon Park. On the other side of the table sat Admiral Hana Shin, commander of the Human Defense Fleet. Chancellor Thulkan, Dae-hyun said, extending his hand. It has been a long time. Thulkan took the hand, surprised by the gesture. It was a very human custom. President Im, thank you for agreeing to meet with us. Of course, please sit. They took their seats. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Thulkan began. President Im, we have come to discuss a matter of great importance. The Council has made mistakes. We recognize that now. We treated humanity poorly. We did not value your contributions. We restricted your growth without justification. For this, we apologize. Dae-hyun listened without expression. Thulkan continued. We would like to invite humanity to rejoin the Council. We are prepared to offer significant concessions. Full voting rights on all matters. Access to all trade routes. Priority in territorial expansion. We can negotiate the specifics, but we want you back. Dae-hyun was quiet for a moment. Then he said, thank you for the apology. I appreciate the journey you have made to deliver it. But we must decline your offer. President Im, please understand, Vextar began. Dae-hyun raised a hand gently. Counselor Vextar, I understand your position. Your colonies are struggling. Your systems are failing. You need help. I understand this very well. Then help us, Vextar said. His mandibles clicked desperately. My people are dying. We need your technicians, your doctors, your coordinators. Name your price. It is not about price, Dae-hyun said. It is about respect. Ji-hoon spoke up. For 87 years, we tried to be good partners. We contributed. We helped. We asked for nothing except to be treated as equals. But we were never equals in your eyes. We were useful servants. That is not true, Oranim started. It is true, Ji-hoon said firmly. When you voted to restrict us, you did not think about our contributions. You did not consider our feelings. You saw us as subordinates who needed to be controlled. And when we left, you barely noticed. You moved on to other business within minutes. Thulkan could not deny it. You are right. We failed you. But surely there is a way to make amends? Admiral Hana Shin spoke for the first time. Chancellor, may I ask you a question? Thulkan nodded. Why did you wait 7 weeks to come here? Our ships left your space 49 days ago. You could have sent a delegation immediately. Why wait until your systems were collapsing? The question hung in the air. Thulkan knew the answer. They had waited because they thought the humans would come back on their own. They thought humanity needed the Council. We were wrong, he admitted. We thought you would fail without us. We thought you would return begging for readmission. We were arrogant. Yes, Hana said simply. You were. Dae-hyun stood and walked to the window. He looked down at Terra Nova. We did not leave the Council to punish you. We left because staying required sacrificing our dignity. We cannot be members of an organization that does not respect us. We respect you now. Vextar said. We understand your value. We were blind before. Please, give us another chance. Dae-hyun turned back to face them. What you respect is our usefulness. That is not the same as respecting us as equals. You need us now. So you are willing to make concessions. But what happens in 20 years when your systems are stable again? What happens when you no longer need us so desperately? No one had an answer. We will not return to the Council, Dae-hyun said. Not under any circumstances. We have moved on. Then let us hire your people, Oranim suggested. Not as Council members but as contractors. We will pay any rate you ask. We just need the help. Ji-hoon shook his head. That will not work either. Our technicians and doctors are not interested in returning to Council space, even temporarily. You dismissed them. You told them they were unimportant. They have no desire to go back. Then what do you want? Vulcan asked. There must be something. Some way to resolve this. Daehyun sat back down. We want nothing from you, Chancellor. We are not angry. We are not seeking revenge. We have simply chosen a different path. But you will let our people die? Vextar demanded. You will watch our economies collapse? No, Daehyun said. We will help. But not as council members. Not as contractors. As one civilization to another. He gestured to Hana, who pulled up a display. It showed cargo manifests and shipping schedules. We are already sending medical supplies to the affected colonies, Daehyun explained. We are providing food to stations that are running short. We are sending technical documentation to help your engineers. This is humanitarian aid. We give it freely, as a gift. A gift? Vulcan repeated. Yes. We help because it is the right thing to do. Not because we want something in return. Not because you are paying us. We help because people are suffering. And we can ease that suffering. Vextar looked confused. But this is exactly what we are asking for. Your help. You are asking us to return to a subordinate position, Ji-hun corrected. You want us back in the council, so you can control us again. What we are offering is simple humanitarian assistance between independent civilizations. What is the difference? Oranim asked. The difference is dignity, Daehyun said. The difference is respect. We will help you as equals, or not at all. Vulcan leaned back in his chair. So you will send aid, but you will not rejoin the council. You will help us survive, but you will not return to partnership. Correct, Daehyun said. And we will do this for as long as necessary. When your systems are stable again, we will continue to be neighbors. We will trade with you. We will maintain diplomatic relations. But we will never again be members of an organization that treats us as inferiors. The counselors looked at each other. This was not the outcome they had hoped for. They had come expecting to negotiate terms. They had not expected to be offered charity. This is difficult to accept, Vulcan said. I imagine it is, Daehyun replied. But it is all we are offering. You can accept our help as a gift between equals, or you can refuse it. The choice is yours. There was a long silence. Finally, Vulcan spoke. We accept. And we thank you for your generosity. Daehyun nodded. The first shipments will arrive within the week. We will coordinate with your local authorities to ensure proper distribution. The meeting was over. The delegation stood to leave. As they walked to the door, Vextar turned back. Will you ever forgive us? He asked quietly. Daehyun smiled sadly. Counselor, we already have. We bear you no ill will. We simply cannot return to the way things were. We hope you understand. I am beginning to, Vextar said. They left. The human protocol officer escorted them back to their ship. As they boarded, Vulcan looked back at the station. It was beautiful and functional, a testament to what humans could build when left to their own devices. They really do not need us, he said. They never did, Oranim replied. We needed them, we just did not realize it. The ship departed, heading back to council space. Behind them, Terra Nova continued its peaceful orbit. Human ships continued their work. Life went on. The humans had made their choice. Now the council had to live with the consequences of theirs. 1 year had passed since humanity left the Galactic Council. The galaxy looked very different now. Nari Song stood in her new office on Terra Nova. The title on her door read, Minister of External Affairs. Through her window, she could see a dozen ships from different species docked at the human stations. Not council ships. Independent merchants and diplomats from species who had chosen to deal with humanity directly. Her assistant knocked and entered. Minister Song, the Felnar trade delegation has arrived early. They are very eager to finalize the agreement. Nari smiled. Of course they are. Show them to conference room 3. I will be there shortly. The Felnar were the 5th species to establish independent trade relations with humanity this year. They were bypassing the Council entirely. Working directly with human merchants and manufacturers, the Council did not approve, but they could not stop it. Meanwhile, in Council space, things were slowly stabilizing. The humanitarian aid from humanity had prevented total collapse. Food arrived on schedule. Medicine reached the sick. Technical documentation helped engineers keep critical systems running, but it was not the same as having humans there to do the work. The Council was learning to function without them. But it was difficult. Everything took longer. Problems that would have been solved in hours now took days. The efficiency that humans had brought was gone. Minji-an ran one of the most successful logistics companies in human space. She had been a junior coordinator in the Council's trade division. Now she owned her own fleet of cargo ships and employed 2,000 people. The Council had hired her company to handle some of their distribution needs. She charged fair rates. Not cheap, but not expensive either. Just the market price for professional service. The Council paid without complaint. They had no choice. Independent human contractors were more reliable than their own systems now. Minji, we have another request from the Vextar colonies, her operations manager said. They want to extend the contract for another 6 months. Tell them 8 months minimum, Minji replied. And the price goes up 5%. Their routes are difficult and require specialized equipment. They will complain. They will pay. Minji said calmly. They know we are the best option they have. It was true. Minji's company never missed a delivery. Her systems worked flawlessly. Her staff was professional and competent. The Vextar had tried using other services. All of them had failed in various ways. Across human space, similar stories played out. Human businesses thrived. Human colonies expanded steadily. Young explorers like Yejun Ro were discovering new worlds and opening them for settlement. Yejun had just returned from his latest expedition. He had found 3 habitable planets in an unclaimed sector. Following human policy, he had registered them with the public database that all species could access. These worlds are open to anyone, he announced. Human, council member, or independent. We claim no exclusive rights. First come, first served. It was a radical policy. Most species claimed new worlds exclusively for themselves. But humans believed in sharing discoveries. They had space enough for everyone. Within weeks, settlers from 6 different species had applied for permission to establish colonies on Yejun's worlds. Humans, Quintar, Felnar, and others. They would live side by side, governed by simple agreements about mutual respect and cooperation. The Council watched these developments with growing unease. They saw their authority eroding. Species were making deals without consulting the Council. Trade networks were forming that bypassed Council control. Colonies were being established in territories the Council had not approved, but they could not stop it. They had no leverage. No one was breaking Council laws. They were simply working outside the Council system. In the Council chamber, Councillor Oranim floated before the assembly. The crystalline being had changed over the past year. The experience had humbled them all. We must face reality, Oranim said. Our authority is based on our usefulness. For 1,000 years, we provided services that species could not get elsewhere. Trade coordination, dispute resolution, collective security. But now there are alternatives. The humans, Vextar said bitterly. Not just the humans, Oranim corrected. The humans showed others that the Council is not essential. Now species are finding their own solutions, creating their own networks, building their own systems. Thulkan had aged visibly in the past year. The stress had taken its toll. What do you propose? We must change, Oranim said. We must become what we always claimed to be. A true partnership of equals. Not a hierarchy with us at the top. That is idealistic nonsense, one of the junior councillors objected. The Council has always had a structure. leaders and followers. That is how civilizations work. It is how we thought civilizations work, Oranim said. The humans have shown us a different way. Meanwhile, a very different conversation was happening on Terra Nova. President Dae-hyun Im sat in his office with a small group of advisors. Ji-hoon Park was there, so was Admiral Hana Shin and Minister Nari Song. The council is preparing a formal invitation, Nari reported. Not to rejoin as we were before. They want to propose a complete restructuring. They are calling it the Federation of Equal Partners. A new name does not mean a new system, Hana said skeptically. Actually, the proposal is quite radical, Nari said, pulling up the document. They want to dissolve the council entirely. Start over with a new structure where all members have equal voting power. No senior councilors. No hierarchy. Pure democracy. Ji-hoon read through the proposal. They are serious about this. They are proposing to give up power they have held for 1,000 years, because they know it is the only way to survive, Dae-hyun said. Species are leaving. The council is becoming irrelevant. They either change or die. What do we do? Nari asked. Dae-hyun was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, we respond honestly. We tell them we will consider joining their new federation, but only if it truly operates on the principles it claims. Equal partnership. Mutual respect. Decisions made by consensus, not by dominance. They may not be ready for that, Hana said. Then they will fail. Dae-hyun replied. And we will continue building our own path. Either way, humanity will be fine. He stood and looked out at the stars. We never wanted to leave the council. We wanted to be true partners. If they are finally ready to offer that, we should at least listen. And if it is just words? Ji-hoon asked. If they go back to their old ways once they have stabilized, then we leave again. Dae-hyun said simply. We know we can survive without them now. That knowledge changes everything. We are no longer dependent. We are no longer desperate for their approval. We deal with them as equals, or not at all. Nari prepared the response. It was polite, but firm. Humanity would attend the discussions about the new federation. They would participate in good faith. But they would not commit to joining until they saw real change. The message ended with a simple line. We are here when you are ready. However long that takes. It was sent to the council. The response came back 3 days later. Chancellor Thul Khan himself had written it. We understand. We have much to prove. We ask only for the chance to try. And so the conversations began. Slow, careful. Both sides testing the other. The council proposed changes. Humans suggested refinements. Other species joined the discussions. It would take months, maybe years, but something new was being built. In the meantime, life continued. Human ships carried cargo. Human engineers solved problems. Human doctors healed the sick. Not because they were paid. Not because they were ordered, but because it was the right thing to do. Young Ye Jun-ro prepared for his next expedition. He would explore more worlds. Find more places where life could flourish. And when he found them, he would share them with everyone. That was the human way. Build, share, help, repeat. The galaxy was slowly learning that lesson. Some species learned faster than others. Some resisted. But the direction was clear. Hierarchies were giving way to partnerships. Control was being replaced by cooperation. The old ways were fading. New ways were emerging. And at the center of it all, humanity worked quietly. They did not demand credit. They did not seek glory. They simply did what needed to be done and moved on to the next task. Admiral Hana Shin stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the stars. Her fleet was strong. Her people were ready. But she hoped they would never need to fight. Peace was better than war. Cooperation was better than conflict. Building was better than destroying. These were not complicated ideas, but somehow the galaxy had forgotten them. Humanity was helping them remember, not through speeches or laws, not through force or intimidation, but through simple example. This is how civilizations should work. This is how people should treat each other. This is what partnership actually means. The council was learning. Slowly, painfully, but they were learning. And maybe, someday, they would get it right. Maybe they would build something truly worth joining. Until then, humanity would wait. And work. And build. And help. Because that was who they were. That was who they had always been. And no vote could ever change that. The stars shone bright above Terra Nova. Ships moved between them, carrying goods and people, and hope. The galaxy turned, ancient and eternal, and in the quiet spaces between the stars, humanity built their future. One day at a time, one world at a time, one act of kindness at a time. They had left the council quietly, and in that quiet departure, they had changed everything.